So ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon I'm going to discuss the evolution of the concept of trade facilitation, as well as the link between this concept and regional integration, and especially the trade facilitation program in the Tripartite FTA. Now, trade facilitation can address various of the issues and challenges that we face with the high cost of doing business in the region. These challenges and issues, for instance, include inadequate customs procedures, inadequate infrastructure, complex trade regulations, variation in transit charges, as well as high transportation and high transaction costs. Through a comprehensive trade facilitation program, these challenges can be addressed and provide an opportunity for the 26 tripartite countries to increase their competitiveness and increase the benefits associated with trade liberalization, and also contribute to economic growth, development, and poverty alleviation. Better border and customs management, improved infrastructure, open markets in logistics and the services sector, harmonized regional standards. All of these can contribute to the reduction of the overall trade costs, to increasing competitiveness, which then can contribute to an improvement of an overall export performance, which can then contribute to trade opportunity creation and job creation. Trade facilitation can benefit the economies in Southern and Eastern Africa by reducing overall trade costs, reducing transit times, reducing transaction times, creating trade and investment opportunities, increasing government revenue, and increasing gross domestic product. Trade facilitation is also a key instrument in the agenda for regional integration within the region. Trade facilitation with regional integration can foster economic cooperation and intra-Africa trade, can enhance economic opportunities, can create regional competitiveness and regional markets, which is very important for the development of the private sector and the creation of a regional value chain. Trade facilitation measures can also contribute to deeper regional integration by harmonizing technical standards and other measures on a regional level, creating regional infrastructure, and creating cross-border and regional financial services. However, for countries to fully harness the benefits associated with the regional trade facilitation program, trade facilitation should be focused on more than just addressing border issues. Although bottlenecks at the borders and other issues and challenges related at the borders, like customs procedures, contribute significantly to the costs associated with doing business in the region. To harness the full benefits, we must look at trade facilitation in a much broader concept. And that is why the concept of trade facilitation has evolved significantly over the last couple of years. From looking at it at a classic view that trade facilitation should just address border issues and getting goods across borders and trading goods at border posts, to a more integrated, comprehensive approach to try and address the trade costs, overall trade costs, throughout the whole supply chain, throughout the whole producer, distribution, and consumer channel. And also to create transparency in trade, and is based on international norms, standards, and best practices. Such a comprehensive trade facilitation program requires an overarching objective, which then has very specific focus areas underneath this agenda. Specific focus areas can include to eliminate non-tariff barriers, to create integrated border management systems, to create one-stop border posts, to look at standards and technical requirements within the regional framework. Such a trade facilitation program must be designed in such a way to assist countries to lower their overall trade costs, to make countries more competitive on the regional markets as well as on global markets. This will require a trade facilitation program that needs to address a variety of issues and challenges associated with overall trade costs and regulatory measures. It needs to look at transportation costs, logistics, logistical services, infrastructure, technical regulations. So such a comprehensive trade facilitation program must address all these issues and all these challenges. Some of the core principles that can be incorporated in the design and the implementation of such a program include, for instance, the need for high-level political commitment to make such programs successful. You need to assess the financial and the legislative needs for such a program, making sure that the legal framework is in place to be able to implement such a program and such initiatives. Fostering public-private partnerships, including capacity building, training, technical support into such programs, and also making sure that these programs are being monitored to make sure that you can establish how successful these programs are and that they can be adapted and changed according to the needs of the countries. In some of the specific focus areas, for instance, looking at technical standards and other measures, it's about more than just compliance. It's not just about drafting SPS measures, technical measures, and making countries comply with these measures. It's about much more. These measures must be harmonized on the regional level. They must make sure that they promote transparency in trade, that these measures are transparent, that they facilitate trade, and also that they are not unnecessary barriers to trade within the region. With a coordinated border management system, making sure that the necessary political will is in place, making sure that the legal framework is in place in order to implement such a system, as well as incorporating and utilizing your private sector in creating a coordinated border management system. Now, in the creation of the Tripartite Trade Facilitation Program, they took cognizance of this evolved idea of trade facilitation. The comprehensive Tripartite Trade and Transport Facilitation Program was mostly aimed at trying to reduce the cost of transportation within the region. So the main aim of the program is to reduce transit times, transport times, transaction times, to increase overall trade costs, to decrease overall trade costs, and increase overall regional competitiveness. Some of the initiatives included in the program is, for instance, the non-tariff barriers monitoring and eliminating mechanism, one-stop border posts, regional customs bond guarantee systems, a regulatory mechanism for the transport sector, as well as harmonizing road traffic legislation on a regional level. So this new evolved idea of trade facilitation, that it's an integrated and comprehensive approach, has already played a role in the design of this program, as well as the implementation of some of the initiatives underneath or included in the program. For instance, with the one-stop border post at Chirundu between Zambia and Zimbabwe, they took cognizance of the fact that this program needed very high level of political commitment to be able to implement this program. There needed to be a legal framework in place. That's why the one-stop border post is based on an agreement between Zambia and Zimbabwe. And they also included the private sector through consultations in order to implement the one-stop border posts. The non-tariff barriers monitoring and eliminating mechanism, that goes beyond just looking at border issues. It's a very integrated approach. It's trying to address trade costs and the cost of transportation along all the transport corridors throughout the whole region. So this evolved idea of trade facilitation has already played a role, and it is going to play a role in future implementation of some of the programs which has not yet been implemented. That's on the agenda but hasn't been implemented yet. Taking cognizance of some of the best practices, some of the experiences, taking those into account, applying those when implementing the programs. But this idea must also take a role in further negotiations. When the final agreements are negotiated, the final annexes to some of the agreements, if you are going to include SPS, TBTs, NTBs, in these agreements. You need to take cognizance of this overarching agenda to facilitate trade. That it's more about more than just compliance. You don't just want to set technical standards, SPS standards, and just require countries to implement these standards. It's about more than that. You want to facilitate trade. You want to create transparency in trade, regional markets, regional competitiveness, and thus a regional supply chain. Thank you.